Hello, I'm Ileana and I'm back to share another process video with you from my scrappy alcove. Now I'm showing you a Fisker's ruler there, which I'm going to be using to distress some paper, to tear some paper so that it can be kind of equally distressed on both edges. I shall be using every piece of that, which is a handmade paper from somebody I used to lodge with called Margaret Hamilton. And she made two pieces of gorgeous paper some years ago when she wrote to me, and so I've decided to use it now. I haven't actually introduced anything yet though, so let me explain what I'm doing. This is a picture of my dad and his lovely wife Peggy, and this was taken a couple of years ago at my mother-in-law's party for when she turned 60. And I've had the picture kind of floating around on a bit of a fridge magnet, and I just thought I'd pull it out and make something of it. And what I'm going to be using today is supplies from my own stash, which I tend to do whenever it's a challenge, and this challenge was set by two wonderful scrappers, Angie May-Rushlow and Jen Box, who are on the same Facebook forum as I am, which is the Victoria Marie Facebook group. I may have mentioned her before. She's actually a really fantastic, inspirational scrapper, and she hosts this amazing group. And what's happened is that she has shared with us all a process video called Love. It's her number 28th process video. If you ever checked out her channel, you'd be in for a proper treat. And a load of scrappers have decided to lift that layout and then tag some other fellow scrappers in the group. And so I was tagged, and this is my take on her amazing layout. So I decided to use a very old piece of vellum there with a kind of subtle motif printed all over it. And I picked out a green piece of cardstock which I really wanted to tone down, almost as though it's a white, kind of apple white background. And now Victoria Calvin has used a frame on her layout, and the way I decided to interpret that was to kind of gut out a frame in the vellum itself and then peel it back with that lollipop stick and create a little border of green all the way around it. And later on you shall see that that's what I'm going to be using to put my journaling in white pen all the way around it. And so just speeding through this now to show you kind of the start to finish of how I got on with that. And yeah, what else to explain really in the meantime is that, okay, so I've called the layout Dad and Peggy. The and is kind of floating off to the edge, so it just says Dad Peggy on the banner. And we've always affectionately called Peggy ever since we were kids. Dad and Peggy married quite a number of years ago, but they've been together for loads of years, more than that. And so I've known Peggy since I was a child, and so she's my stepmom. And yeah, so that's great. It's nice to have a picture of them to scrap today. Well, a few days ago. And that brick wall there you just saw me cut into is a very old piece of Kanban cardstock, which is a really lovely quality, although I don't know whether they still exist or not. I've never seen any Kanban products since. And the wording, the font I've used is, I think is paisley, pink paisley or something. Anyway, I might have shown you the packaging, which I really love it because it's diagonally striped black and white, and you would think that would be quite a bold, obvious character to use, and that it would stand out against any background, but no, it really doesn't. I've had trouble with that in the past as well, and I've had to outline it in a previous layout I did called Get Me the Elf Out of Here. But on this one, the way I've tackled it is to place it all on individual kind of pennants to form a banner. And I've used some scrap card, which would have been kicking around from a previous layout I did. I think it was the Cat in the Hat. So I've got that blue cardstock, plus some glittery cardstock, as well as some kind of browny craft colour cardstock, onto which I am laying out the letters. And so I didn't have a P, I had an R, so I've made Peggy out, the P from Peggy out of an R. I didn't have an A, I had a V, so I've inverted that, and then I've kind of put a little pip in the middle to make it an A. And so you just see me getting on with that and cutting some rough triangular kind of shapes out of that. And I've put some faux stitching around the edge with this white pen of mine that seems to have miraculously started working and flowing again, although for a while I had to move with the Tim Holtz version. But anyway, this one seems to be working. It might be Pentel, perhaps it doesn't matter. And good old trusty tacky glue there. I'm really keen on trying this Tombow Mono thing that I've seen people use, because I like the idea of a glue that even if it seeps out of the edge, it wouldn't be shiny. So I haven't managed to get my paws onto any of that yet, and I'm still using up the old supplies, which is always great. This sarsaparilla pack of ribbons and string and twine, I suppose, has been kicking around for a very long time. Back in the day, whenever I bought that, I bought 2 packs of it thinking I'd use it all the time, and of course I've been left with 2 packs that I've hardly ever used until today. So it's been nice to use some of the braid, I suppose, the blue braid, and you'll see me layer that up. Victoria's layout was a central kind of symmetrical layout with she kind of laid out some strips all across and tucked in some wonderful pieces of ephemera into that. And her photograph was quite kind of orientated quite to the bottom of the layout. And for a while I thought I was going to go with the central look as well, to kind of to tip my hat to the original layout, but in the end I've decided to kick it off to the right. I wasn't very confident with the central look myself. I think to go with a symmetrical look is quite a confident move, and I wasn't feeling that confident. I thought I'd kick it off to the edge and give it a bit of interest by virtue of placement rather than by anything I laid onto the actual layout itself. So there's many tricks you can employ there. But what I have done is laid the lettering onto the photograph itself, just to kind of to add the interest really, and because it kind of fit there okay, and I wanted to squeeze all the whole title on there, and so it just worked well to lay it over my dad's shirt. And I've gone for a quite muted palette as well, although I do like the dark of the wood, which came from a very cheap paper pack from a brilliant shop called The Works. Anyone in the UK will know that The Works is a kind of eclectic shop, and you can buy all sorts of strange little children's games and some children's crafts which can be useful, and loads of books, as well as a little craft corner. And if you're lucky, if you happen to walk in the shop on the right day, you can pick up some interesting supplies. So I found that paper for £2, which to me was a real bargain, because I love anything that's wood effect, and there was loads of that in the pack. It's a very thin paper though, but works well for my purposes today, especially since I've then gone ahead and matted it onto some gold card to make a kind of a shadow effect on the pennants. And what I did as well was to consult my husband about whether I should just leave it as a mat all the way around each individual letter flag, or whether I should attempt something slightly more daring and create a kind of shadow effect, but only kind of to the bottom and right. And that's what I went for, and I really loved the way I did that. And you can't necessarily see on this video, or certainly while I'm narrating this, you can't pick up the detail of that, but in reality it really does almost cast the optical illusion of a shadow on the pennants there. So I really like what I've done. And there you go with the braiding of the October Afternoon ribbons pack. So I've kind of randomly layered all of this up in the well, I say central column. I was intending to lay it centrally for a while, as I said. And I've also I tried to use some gold glitter ribbon from a previous quirky kit, but I decided not to use that because one thing I was quite nervous of was to make the layout look too Christmassy, since there was already quite a lot of white that I thought mimicked snow, which I didn't want because this was a summer picture. I thought that I would just not go with gold as well on this one. So instead I've used some kind of plasticky, strange floral ribbon there, which I knew I was going to be covering over, but I quite liked the idea of using some black to ground the whole layout, especially as there is a bit of black in the photograph as well, and so I just thought it would frame it quite nicely to ground it on the bottom there. And there's some gold. I've clearly already used that to take out some die cuts previously, a long time ago, but I don't like to waste the waste. That's it, the gold waste. And I thought it was going to be a bit more exposed in the final layout, but as it happens, I've overlaid that, but it still gives a bit of texture across the top there, and so actually I quite like that too. And in reality, you can just see a bit of a rim of gold around the edges anyway. This bird I have is metal, and it's quite thick. It's probably about ½ an inch thick off the page. So I haven't tried putting this into a page protector yet. I think I'm going to have a bit of a job with that, but no, it should slip in okay. It's not got any jaggy edges at least. But I've had that bird for so long, and I can tell you about it. I bought that back in the day where I had just little baby Lorenz to look after, and a friend who lived, she'd moved from the area where I live now into the Red Hill area, and it's a kind of a place, it's sort of a boutique or a soft play as well. It's all combined, and then you can go for massages, which I never did, but it's a place called Heaven, and that bird was on sale at the reception area of this place called Heaven. I want to say Red Hill, it wasn't, it was outside, on the outskirts of that. It doesn't really matter. I'm just getting het up about the detail there, but I just wanted to say that it's from so many years ago, and I just wanted to get it used. I always intended to use it on scrapbooking. I think I was perhaps thinking along the lines of mini books and kind of having it as a dangle on the spine, but in the end I've used it on this layout, and I really love it there. And because it came with its own jute cord, I've found other elements with jute in them as well, and you'll see me use those later, and I'll talk you through it at the time. Do pardon my head from keep entering the frame there. I just really needed to peer over the top of those flags to lay down some kind of pearl beading across the top to make it look as though that's what it's hanging on. Okay, and so there I am with the homemade paper that the wonderful Margaret Hamilton made for me so many years ago. And so I'm going to distress the edge of that blue strip there, and with the magic of camera just place that back down. And there's a green strip there as well from the branding strip of that, the basic cardstock I have. This is a Sizzix die that I have. I've used it previously and it was just hanging around, so I decided to kind of make a trellis on the wood there. And this Dovecraft product called Sugar and Spice I've had hanging around for quite some time as well, and it's essentially just some brads, and I've used a couple of turquoise ones in this layout, and you'll see me insert those later on. And one of them, that one on the right there, actually it's not there right now, I've just put a heart where the brad is going to end up. I actually said the word wicked on it. Now, wicked's a great word, and it can mean great things, especially over here in London, where it's just everything's wicked, man. But on this occasion, I just thought, with the fact that this is my stepmother, and of course all these fairy tales that refer to a wicked stepmother, I just thought that was not nice. And so I've covered that over with a little piece of gold diamond, and I think that much more relates to Peggy, the diamond. And there I go to place that little brad in there. And okay, so now I'm using a bit of actual jute string there to create a bow across the top, and I'll be gluing that on later. And just starting to commit down some of these elements now, put them in place. I think I may have been playing with these plastic hearts, and I should explain those for you as well. Again, another perfect element, and that word love as well, which is also plastic of the same material, is shrink plastic, folks. Remember that stuff? Well, I made these elements years ago. In fact, it relates to the time where I did a little footprint of my son Lorenz, and I attached that onto a mini album. So I think the first video I ever posted onto YouTube, actually, it was a mini album for my mother-in-law, and I dangled Lorenz's footprint, which was shrunk in shrink plastic. And I think I made these elements, so it must be about 3 or so years ago, using the same material. And to make some hearts, and I stamped the word love, and I think I must have just used chalk ink, and they're not permanent actually, even though it's shrunk down. I think you could just rub off the ink, but I quite liked the effect anyway that it had there, and so I've used the hearts not showing plastic side up but actually showing chalk side up, except for the word love, which obviously wouldn't have looked right in reverse. And that's me sticking love down there. And the heart there on the string, which I've threaded through, is what was dangling, the kind of manufacturer's heart for the little bird at the bottom. And I've used a stick pin there. That was something my mum gave me. Love to incorporate a few of her gifts every now and again, as you know, in my scrapbooking, and I just popped it in the edge. A gold stick pin heart flower, which actually it's the only gold. No, actually it's not the only gold elements. That's fine, but it's a slightly brassier shade of gold than the gold that is used on the pennants. Not to worry, all ties in kind of nicely. Just sticking down the string kind of in the direction that it was curling already, and committing the plastic hearts across the layout just as a kind of sprinkle. I was thinking to use ink actually, but then I decided to just sprinkle hearts instead because I thought it just gets them stashed used up. And now that's if you remember, I cut some of the flower there that's also from the works with the little pearl in the middle. I cut that slightly and I've just incorporated that into one of the layers across the top of the trellis there. And this is where I finally write the journaling, which says, on Saturday the 9th of August 2013, you came to celebrate Wendy's 60th birthday retirement and 40th wedding anniversary rolled into one. You both looked amazing as you arrived at the Grange, Wallington. You certainly both know how to party, and you were amongst the last remaining guests, really grooving on down to some golden oldies. So sweet to see. Good times. And so this is the point now where I would like to say thanks so much for watching. Feel free to rate, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and I look forward to seeing you again for another video in the near future. Bye for now.